Hi there. Welcome to the 2021 Homestyles Home and Renovation Show, the virtual edition. My name is Jessica Bonish, and I am the Director of Marketing and Major Projects with the Saskatoon Region Home Builders Association. And it's my pleasure once again to welcome you to the Star Phoenix virtual main stage. For the entire month of March, we have been bringing you the best in home and renovation right on our website at homestylesonline.com. And every single weekend, we've been bringing you experts right to your home to teach you all about home and renovation topics. This weekend, sadly, is our last live session that we're going to be doing, but we have a very interesting presentation today for you from our CEO, Chris Guérette. She's going to be talking to you all about what to look for when hiring a professional renovator. So, before I pass along the stage to Chris, I do want to remind you that this is a live session. So if you have any questions for Chris in regards to hiring a professional renovator, you can leave your questions in the box below. Also, even though we are virtual, we are of course following COVID protocols here on our virtual main stage, distancing, hand washing, and our entire crew behind the scenes is masked. We encourage you to do the same as well when you're out in public. All right, without further ado, I'm going to pass it along to Chris to talk to us about how to hire a professional renovator.
Hi, I'm Chris Guérette, and I'm really happy today to be giving a presentation on tips to hire the right way and avoid problems. You know, we get these questions a lot here at the team, and I think before I get started, I just have to remind people, I am not a renovator. I'm also not a lawyer. I'm not a specialist in any way, but we do have a number of resources to help people through their journey of renovation. And so I think that's what we're going to walk through today. I have a number of tips, number of ideas, and if you want to follow at the same time, you can find all of the documents I'll be mentioning at getitinwriting.ca. It's a fabulous website that can help you through your journey, and that's exactly what I'm going to be basing my presentation on today. So let's get started. Our presentation is going to be divided into 3 categories: getting informed, hiring a contractor, and then moving through your project. Since there's a lot of information here, this presentation is actually only going to cover getting informed and then how to search for that professional. Anything else in terms of starting your project, I suggest you go on that website, getitinwriting.ca, and then that can walk you through the different steps as well. You'll be familiarized with the visuals from this presentation to the website because we're utilizing that same sort of tool, questions, and language. So when we talk about getting informed, what we're really talking about are 5 different things before you get started: planning and designing and budgeting, considerations of should you do it yourself or hire a professional, 3, your contracts. When we say get it in writing, when we talk about contracts, what are we talking about? 4, insurance and workers' compensation, anything having to do with safety, and 4, liens, permits, warranties. So let's get started with planning, design, and budget. So planning makes a huge difference. I know we always say that, but the more planning that you do, the less surprises you will have. That being said, renovation work, there's going to be surprises coming along. So the more you can plan, when you do have a surprise, then you're going to be ready for it. And you'll have room to maneuver through those surprises. But essentially, you need to develop a plan. There's 3 worksheets online. They're Excel worksheets. So again, go to getitinwriting.ca. And those are great examples to help you work through this process. So essentially what you need to do is a clear description of what you want and your goals. And I know that sounds very general and easy, but when you start putting it in writing, into a plan, into this worksheet, you actually start questioning yourself in terms of what do I really want? How do I explain that to somebody else before you even start hiring a contractor? Start hiring a contractor. So take an inventory of what you currently have and what you need. Describe each item. If you would have to describe this to your contractor, what would that be? And you know what? This is actually a really good tip. Make sure that everybody in your household participates, or those who are able to participate can participate. You know, the last thing you want is you're explaining something a certain way and the contractor comes along and starts doing something and somebody else in the family starts to panic because that's not what they envisioned. So have that conversation, have everybody participate. And I always say the more people who are providing their opinions, the better the outcome. And think about the seasonal conditions for that. You know, we're thinking about envisioning maybe something during the summer months. Well, how is that going to function in the winter? And how does that function for your family? So think about all of those aspects as well. Other items to consider: define your priorities. What are your must-haves in your budget? So after you've envisioned, you know, a lot of people do the visioning part with some visuals online, and there are some great platforms out there. We all know Pinterest and so on. And once you have visuals, sometimes that's easier to explain as well. But then consider the priorities, the must-haves, and then your budget. So even though you may have X amount of budget, you never know if surprises will come along. So assume that you have less. What would you then do if you had to prioritize that? And that will help you determine if you're under budget or over budget, because remember, you don't have a quote yet, right? So you may not be fully aware of what the costs truly are. Let's take a look at lumber, for example. Lumber is very expensive right now. So do your priorities, just in case what you think you can do with the budget that you have, you won't actually be able to do that. Your use of space, think of light and brightness, the movement of the people, how that goes through. So consider again your day-to-day experience, how it functions for you as a family, as a young professional, and all of that. So plan as much as you can. I always like to say a wish list as well. Final point here. You know, you're dreaming and these are things that you may want, just put it in the parking lot, or we call it a wish list. You never know, maybe you'll be able to do that. Once you have all that planning, then you can really get into that design and budget. A successful renovation depends on good design. You're going to get there once you start your conversation with the renovator that you choose. However, you know, you're going to eventually get there to that good design. Experienced renovators will work with you to explore the designs that fit your home, your lifestyle, your budget. But again, if you've planned that and you've put that in writing before, then you'll have a better outcome in terms of explaining what your vision really is in your head. And you know, a lot of people have different competencies and different expectations in terms of how they envision their renovation project. A good renovator is used to that. But once they see what you've put in writing and what you're trying to convey, they can determine how to best fill the gap to get you to that finished state. Tips for keeping within budget, right? That's important. Setting your priorities, we talked about that. Looking closely at what you already have. Sometimes we don't consider those things, but when you start looking at your priorities, then, you know, recycling maybe what you already have may be an option. Do the work in stages that suits your budget. So when you're doing the priorities, there may be options of doing maybe half one year and another portion the other year. And how does that work? Your renovator will also be able to walk you through that. Consider capital versus operating costs. This is if you're really doing a massive investment into your home. We're talking here about maybe additions to your home, completely redoing the plan of your home. So that would be a different aspect there. And if you're really prioritizing, are you somebody who can do some parts yourself, and how to do that? But also how to do that in a way where you're still utilizing the professional and that you won't get in each other's way, but that's a conversation that you could also have. But at the end of the day, that comes into the question of, you know, should you do it yourself or should you hire a professional? And everybody has a different capacity. Here are some of the questions that you should ask yourself. Do you really have the necessary skills, right? And when we talk about really have the necessary skills, you know, I firmly believe we can all achieve what we want, but do we want to put the amount of time in it? Do you have the proper tools to do that? And if you're investing in all these tools, will that, you know, cost-benefit analysis really work for you? And do you need a building permit? If you're not able to answer that question for that project, it probably means that you need to rely on a professional to do that. Do you have the time? And I always say when you have the time, you have to consider the time of your whole family and everybody else living in your family, in your household as well. Because if you're going to be taking 2, 3, 4 times the time to do that, everybody else has to have that patience and the time to live through that as well. So take that into consideration before doing your project. We covered tools and equipment. Do you have that? Can you rent them? Should you buy them? Does that add to the expense? And then when you do the analysis of just hiring a professional, is it worth it? How do others feel about it? And get a second opinion. A second opinion if you should do it yourself, right? Have that chat with your spouse. I think that's always a good way to determine if people in your household are on board with the project and the idea. Now, do-it-yourself projects that you should avoid generally. Again, everybody has different expertise, right? But in general, here are the ones that we would recommend that you avoid. Plumbing, electrical, gas repairs and installations. These are really time-sensitive, specific skills that require specific education for that. And remember, eventually you may sell your home, right? So always think about that in terms of, if I sell my home, even if you're not planning to sell your home, you could have an emergency happen and you decide, okay, I think I need to sell my home quickly. All of that work that you will have done, can you say that that will bring value to your home, or it'll decrease the value of your home, right? So that's one way to look at it. Roofing or other exterior work involving heights. Again, it's a safety issue. And I think when you do it yourself at home, I think people forget that safety is still a huge consideration, right? There's safety equipment that you should be doing, just like a professional should be doing as well. Asbestos removal, that's a very obvious one, and disposal, and really you're putting the rest of your family at risk if you don't know how to do that safely. And safety first, every time. There's some really great workshops out there with the Safety Construction Association, and take a look what you should consider when you're doing safety and when you're doing work at home, and what kind of safety requirements you should consider. Some great tips there, but we won't get into it. The next slide is actually a document that I actually think everybody should print out, refer to it often, when you decide to embark on your renovation project, especially if it's a larger project with a larger investment. And everybody describes larger a different way, right? But this is a really good, it's called Golden Rules of Renovation, and it's a checklist. And essentially what it is, it's a reminder between you and your spouse or everybody in the household of what we will commit to before we embark on this journey of hiring a contractor. So let's go through that list, and remember you can find it online as well at getitinwriting.ca. So 1, we know what we want. That planning part we just talked about, we know what we want. We have a realistic budget, right? And you may not know this fully until you embark with quotes and so on, but keep that in mind that you need to have a list of priorities. 3, we've planned for the long term. Remember, long term meaning you may need to sell your house at one point. Even though that's not the plan, life happens. So you want to plan for your investment so that your home remains a very solid investment. 4, we will protect ourselves. So when we're talking about risks, and we'll cover this as well in the presentation. Next one, we won't jeopardize the quality of our renovation by compromising on the quality of products, material, or labor. Again, this is really important, and this is why it's important to have presentations like this to educate homeowners in terms of what does that really mean, and we'll get to that. Next one, we won't choose a renovator on price alone. And I think this is determining that value and what is that best fit for you, and that'll be very important as well. We won't buy from a door-to-door salesperson without carefully checking out the company. That means take the time. You're hiring somebody. Not only that, you're hiring somebody to enter your home. So that's a double whammy that you really need to make sure that you feel comfortable about and you won't have any regrets. So take a look at that checklist, print it out, and it's a really good reminder when it's time to make some tough decisions in your conversations with everybody else in your household. So the next one is contracts. When we say get it in writing, what do we mean here? What goes into a contract? A good contract essentially provides a great peace of mind that your home, your investment is protected. Again, I am not a lawyer and I can't pretend that I have any specialty in that, but I do know that putting things in writing and having an agreement there so we understand how that journey will progress together is very important. The size of the project will impact the documentation. So essentially, if you have a project of $5,000, you may not have the same documentation as a project of $500 or $50,000. It's going to be very different, but you will see that in there. Same thing, you may hire a lawyer at a certain point to make sure that your contract is actually what it should be and that it protects you and all parties in that investment. And that's really a personal decision in terms of at what point or at what threshold should you do that. I personally believe that that's always a good investment, and so consider that as well. Remember that cash deals leave you vulnerable and can cost you more in the long run, and we'll cover that. And I can't emphasize this enough. There's some realities there that we will go into, and when we go back to essentially our golden rule of checklists, that's one of the aspects as well. Oh, my computer's freezing a little bit, but I think we'll be okay. But here are 7 elements to include in your contract. So the parties of the contract, so your contractor, who's going to pay and who's receiving the payment, the scope of that work, and again, the scope of the work that will be, the detail in that will depend on the size of the project. The project schedule. And remember, the project schedule, especially in a time when the market is very busy, it'll be important to say what happens if you can't meet your deadlines. What are the expectations on both parties? And embarking in the project, that may not be an issue, but that may happen. So that'll be important to cover. The price. And you know what is a really good question to ask? And that just ensures that you've covered everything. Ask, what does that price not include? Right? That's a good question to ask. It may not be in the contract, but then it just clarifies that conversation. And you know what? We're not renovation experts. So sometimes when you ask the reverse question, that helps us understand the scope of the work better. Contractors insurance and workers' compensation. We will cover that as well on the next slide, so I'm not going to jump into it too much right now. Warranty. Warranty is also really important. When you buy a new home, you often have third-party warranty. Well, you can have it for large renovation projects as well. A certified renovator will actually provide third-party warranty for a project of $20,000 and over. However, it's completely realistic for you to request that at a smaller amount as well. So if you want that peace of mind at $15,000, for example, you could ask a certified renovator how much that would be. So if an additional, $200 for that warranty gives you peace of mind, I think that's a sound investment as well. Third-party warranties are companies such as Progressive New Home Warranty, Saskatchewan New Home Warranty Program. If you take a look at our website, there's a handful of good companies that operate in Saskatchewan that can provide that service for you. And there's other contract elements as well. But those are really the important points to consider when you're going through your contract. So I said we would talk about insurance and workers' compensation. So let's go through that. Have you considered, what if your contractor accidentally damages your property? What if your contractor accidentally damages your neighbor's property? Those things can happen, right? Accidents happen all the time. What happens if construction work on your property causes injury to a neighbor, to a family member, to a friend who was there? That can happen as well. Essentially, your contractor should only work with contractors who've had adequate business insurance, and you can ask that question. You can actually also ask, where is your certificate of insurance? Some contractors who are only sort of a one-person shop might not require that. But you can still ask. Another option would be for you to ask if your homeowner's insurance covers that. So have that conversation. Call your home insurance agent or broker and ask the details that you need before you get started. So they'll either tell you if you're covered or not, if you have an option for additional coverage that you can get. And again, it's about that peace of mind in case something happens. And what's workers' compensation? Many people know what that is, but essentially it's a government program. It's provincial. It's to protect the workers in case there's an accident. Enrollment is mandatory for most, and that depends on the size of the business. But it's the responsibility of the contractor. If the contractor is not complying, the person responsible is actually the homeowner. And not a lot of people know that. So even though you are inviting somebody into your home and they're doing the work, if they, or in your judgment, they are the cause of the accident, you as a homeowner, because you're the construction site, you are the person responsible for that. So that changes things, right? When you consider that that is your risk, that's why you have to ask questions. So ask for that certificate. Another point is if you ask for this to be a cash deal or the contractor offers it, they may not be covered simply because of that, because there's no paper trail on it. So even though they're covered under workers' compensation, because it's a cash deal, there's no paper trail of it. So that's important as well. And let's remember, when it's a cash deal, and we have contractors as well who will say, some homeowners want a better price if they can do it by cash, and vice versa. Some contractors who are not certified are offering a cash deal. Remember, if they're ever audited by the government to make sure that they're paying all of their taxes, the government can come knocking on your door as well for proof that you did pay tax on that contract service. So remember that. Is that worth the risk for you? And I always say, ask your contractor for a letter of clearance from WCB. And if your contractor is nervous about that, that's a big red flag. Any good contractor knows that that's easy to supply. They should have one handy. And they should be impressed that they're going to deal with somebody who cares about that, right? So to me, that's a major red flag in terms of the safety, insurance, third-party warranty. Those are minimum standards that you should have conversations with your contractors. So let's go on liens, permits, and warranties. Liens essentially are a legal notice that somebody's putting a claim for payment on the value of your property, right? And so that becomes problematic essentially if you're looking to remortgage your home. Mostly you won't be able to remortgage your home if there's a lien on that property. And again, you'll need to involve a lawyer on that. But an example would be you can't contract out of this. So this would be part of your contract based on certain sizes. And essentially what the law says is that a portion of the job is held back for 45 days in case that contractor has not paid all of their employees. Then there's sort of like that pocket of money that can be utilized for that. And that's something that your lawyer takes care of. So again, when you're hitting a certain size of project, these are things that you should consider. And I always say, ask your lawyer, ask your professional the questions that you need to feel comfortable that everybody involved in the project is getting paid. Building permits. So this is essentially issued by your municipality. Each municipality has, somewhat different processes and different permits, but it's essentially to ensure that, the infrastructure, the housing that we have in our municipalities are built to a certain standard, which encompasses safety, efficiency, and that there's a peace of mind when you do buy a home. So permits required for any work on your home. So you may need electrical permit, you may need a plumbing permit, and you may need a gas permit as well, and those would all be separate. So essentially it's work that would be structural to your home. So non-structural work such as, painting, replacing your shingles, new flooring, new cabinets, you're likely not going to require a permit for that. But that's the question that you should ask. Same thing here that it is with safety. The homeowner is actually responsible for this. So you want to make sure that you're delegating that to your contractor and that they are doing the work that they need. Again, if a contractor is claiming that you don't need this and that nobody's going to check, well, you know what? They are going to check when it's time to sell your home. So if you're doing a massive renovation to your basement and your home is described as an undeveloped basement and the realtor is noticing that now it's developed, they're going to check to make sure that it's built to code. So those are the examples, right? You want to make sure that your investment, you're protecting that. That's what we mean. So remember, the homeowner is responsible, and I would actually let your contractor do that. Your contractor, if they're doing work and they're professional, they know how to do this efficiently. You just want to make sure that you're getting that delegation done and that you can see that the permit's been pulled. So let's get to the second section of our presentation. How do we hire that contractor? There's going to be 6 different categories here. What type do you need? Contractors to avoid, checking out contractors, getting a price quote, deciding who to hire and finding that professional. Again, I'm going to refer back to that getitinwriting.ca website. There's some great documents there that can help you through that process. Essentially, you're hiring somebody, and you want to make sure that you're comfortable with that. So there's tools there to make you walk through that journey with a bit more safety. What type do you need? There's different types of contractors, and we realized when we're talking about renovation work, there's a vast array and size of work that you can do, and price points as well, right? But essentially, you're either going to fit in these categories: an extensive home renovation, right? We're talking here about, for example, additions to your home. Specific home renovations. You're going to refresh your bathroom or your kitchen, for example. Installations. You're upgrading your windows, all or part of your windows, a new roof, that kind of thing. Flooring. Electrical, mechanical, heating, plumbing, any kind of repair that are touching those categories. So when you're doing your plan for your project, fit them into here, and that will also help your contractor who's placing a bid or a quote on your project. It'll help them to understand what you're looking for. Contractors to avoid. And this is, I think, nobody's a professional in renovation work, but they want to make sure that they are making a good choice. So your best bet is to hire a member of a professional association. That's what we say. Just like you would hire a lawyer and you would hire an accountant that's, certified by another body, you want to do that same thing for that professional who's going to be investing in your home. And that's the Saskatoon Region Home Builders Association. And you know what? They're across the country. So you can check that out. They all have their different websites, and they have their list of the builders that are certified, the renovators that are certified. And also the professionals that dabble into those markets more often, such as lawyers, accountants, and that kind of thing. So, the other aspect that you could do, ask for recommendations, because there's a lot of companies out there. But if you know of friends, coworkers, neighbors who've done a renovation, ask around. Why did you like that company? Why did you not like that company? And that'll help you, narrow down that pool of who you're going to ask. If there were difficulties or issues, ask about them. Going through a renovation project, you're going to have challenges, but it's also how you navigate through those challenges. So just because there's been a challenge or a surprise in a project doesn't mean that, that professional didn't know how to deal with it. It's actually how you went through that together. A retailer may have suggestions as well. Of an easy one-stop way to get the information that you need. So if you're used to dealing with a specific plumber and they may have a special relationship with somebody as well, that may be another way that you can take a look. What can go wrong, right? I mean, they make reality TV shows out of this. So there's a number of things that can go wrong, and that's just the reality of renovation work. So you need to be ready for that and box in your expectations that way. But what can go wrong? Incomplete work, right? That's why payment schedule, work schedule, and completion, and when the inspections will happen, all of that is very important to put in a contract. And on that note, it's also much harder to then get a renovation company to come in to fix or complete somebody else's work. So it's not just the fact that it's incomplete, it's going to be challenging to get somebody else in to then fix that. Poor quality work, and sometimes that poor quality work only comes later down the road, right? So maybe months or a year down the road. So you want that assurance that you're going to have quality work. Accidents in your home and surrounding properties, right? Where we say that the homeowner is the one responsible for that. So that absolutely could go wrong, and you want to make sure that everybody's protected. Injuries in your home or surrounding properties, absolutely. Injured workers, even if it's not injuries, but just accidents, I'll give you a really great example of, somebody's truck leaking oil onto somebody's property, neighboring property. Those are complete accident, but then how do you deal with that? So if there's insurance, that helps. Injured workers, no warranty. Again, somebody could say they have warranty, just ask for that paperwork and that proof. Any good company would expect a good client to ask for that. Unpaid workers and liens. So those are all of the items that could go wrong. So when we're giving you the checkpoints and the things to consider, we want you to avoid any of these points. So how do you check out those contractors so you can avoid those points as much as possible? Let's interview the contractor. Again, really great worksheet online on our website. Take a look at that. There's some really good questions, such as, tell me about your business. You know, how long have you been in business? How long have you been in our community? Do you invest back in your community? How many workers do you have? Tell me about your vision on safety, right? They should be comfortable answering those questions. And you know, it doesn't need to be a formal interview sit down, but it could just be come deliver the quote and ask these questions and see how they answer. Take notes. And you know, as you're getting a few quotes for, you know, larger projects, then you will get a couple of companies that you will know where you have a comfort level with them. But, you know, have those conversations. What services do you offer? Do you carry WCB? Will I get a written contract? When they say yes, just say, okay, so what can I expect for this size of a project? What does that written contract look like? Is it a one-pager because it's a smaller project? Or, you know, how do you typically do this? Walk me through that process. And they can explain that for you. What kind of warranty do you offer for your work? And is it warranty or is it third-party warranty? Remember, those are completely different warranties. I have more comfort level with third-party warranty because I know if there's a disagreement, I know that a third-party warranty will always be there and provide that protection. And do your research there. And how will you deal with our project? Get as much information as you have. And you know what? Verify references. There's also space for those notes on the worksheet. And when we say verify references, just ask them, is there somebody I can call, or where could I view your work online? You know, we used to recommend, do you have, you know, large projects that I can maybe drive by or view? We can't do that during the pandemic, but we have a lot of visual online options that you can do. And a lot of really good contractors provide that already on their website. If they don't, you definitely want to ask that. And getting a quote. How do we do that? You know, it can be very complex. Getting a quote for a small project, such as maybe painting your home or a specific room to adding addition to your home, there's a wide array there of what kind of detail could be provided. So you have to be ready to see that. I think what's important is if you're asking for several different quotes to see what you'll get back, make sure that you can evaluate apples to apples to apples. So if you're not getting that, you know what, pick up the phone and ask questions. You know, providing a quote is a lot of work for contractors. They take that very seriously. And the reason they do is because a quote can be legally binding as well. So they want to make sure that they're doing that very well. So if you're having a hard time understanding that, you know, give them a call back and say, I'm not understanding this point. Could you let me know what that includes? And again, that really good question, can you let me know what does this not include? And that helps you better understand the differences between the quotes. And as I said, price quotes are really time consuming. And so we want to be also respecting professionals' time on this, right? So this is a quote where they're not getting paid for their time. They're also servicing many clients at once. So it's a fine balance of respecting their time. And it's also an indication to this contractor of who they will be working with as well, right? So even though you don't choose them, you don't know yet, you're both kind of interviewing each other at the same time. So that's important to keep in mind as you're starting that new relationship with a contractor you don't know yet. But again, your price quotes should include payment details, timing on both payment details, inspections, and the work being done, the amounts, and the progress milestones for each payment. So if it's a larger project, there may be several payments in there, but to unlock that payment, there's going to be a certain level of expectation. So when does that happen? Who does the inspection, etc. And you know, if you're at that part of it, if you have a project that's large, you're probably also going to have a lawyer as well that's going to unlock those payments as it happens. And so you can have peace of mind with that process as well. So you're getting to the point of deciding who you're going to hire. You know, this is, once you have all that paperwork and you've met everybody and you have a good sense, you need to compare every aspect of the bids. How did they treat you? How did they make you feel, your initial impressions, right? Compare those references. What's important to you? Go back to that golden rule, that checklist that I mentioned earlier, go back to that. And how do you weigh your categories? If you're really stuck and you're not sure, you know, you can always go back to them and say, I'm struggling here. What would be your final one-liner that you could give me? And at the end of the day, just remember the decision is yours. No one should pressure you at all for this process. Guilt's not part of the equation, and if that's what you're feeling from that relationship, then it's probably not the right fit for you. In the end, it's your money. It comes down to trust, confidence, a good fit. And I think let's remember this is your home, and if something goes wrong, you'll be reminded of that every time you go home. So you want to make sure that you're doing a good decision on that. And how to find a professional, I think we've given you some tips already on how to, you know, take a very large pool of professionals and ask friends, ask colleagues on some different examples. But at the end of the day, there's a really good one-stop shop on our website if you're looking for a professional that you can trust, both for new homes and for renovation work, right? And you can sort that through, you know, maybe you're looking for new windows, maybe you need a plumber, and you can start here. And there's a number of great companies there. If you're in Regina, you can do the same thing. There's a website down there as well. But every area has that sort of, how do I find that professional, or where do I start? And you can start there. And, you know, the renovation field now has a certification tied to it. So you may want to check and ask, are you certified? And if they're not, ask them why. You know, often when we ask the question why, it gives us the answers of whether this is a mesh or not, right? And so that's what we often ask. But yeah, there's a lot of options out there, which means there's a lot of opportunities to find some great companies, but there's also a lot of great opportunities for companies who are maybe not doing it the right way. The part of on the website of getitinwriting.ca that we are not covering in this presentation, but I invite you to go take a look, is the how do you start your project. So it will cover how do you finalize your contract, how do things actually work during a project, what are the expectations, how do you make changes. Again, this is a renovation project. You will likely have changes and discover things as you're tearing down walls, for example, and you discover something. And what is the warranty? How does that work? And what's the follow-up work from that after the project is complete? So those are some of the points that you may want to take a look at the website. Again, we think it's a fabulous website to provide additional tools and recommendations for those who need that additional expertise before making a choice. And really happy to give this presentation. So if you do have any questions, I look forward to answering them. And again, a few tips for you, especially in this time of year. You know, we know the market is very busy right now. There's some really cool offerings in terms of a renovation tax credit that people are taking advantage of right now. You know, even with the city of Saskatoon, with the help program they will have in terms of increasing the energy efficiency of their home. So now that there's a lot of programs that people can take advantage of, this is a really good time to take a look at that website. Thanks so much.
Wow, that was a lot of fantastic information. We are now going to be moving to our live question and answer period with Chris. So if you have any questions that you'd like her to answer, you can pop them into the YouTube chat box below, and we will address them right now in our live session. All right. Well, thanks, Chris. That was a ton of fantastic information. Really happy to have that out there. So we do have a nice list of questions for you here that we're going to tackle. And I always like to start off with a question from myself after watching your presentation. So COVID.
Yes.
Obviously, it's changed the face of the landscape for especially renovation
Yes.
industry because people are going directly into your home. So any kind of tips or what to look for COVID protocols or things that renovators should be following?
Absolutely. You know, a good professional certified renovator is going to be concerned about its employees and also you in your home. You know, I'll give a great example. I had a plumber in just last week into my home, and it was a certified renovator. That plumber came in. Before they even walked into the door, I had a survey that I needed to fill out to make sure that I had not traveled. You know, we all know that survey of a few questions because they wanted to ensure the protection of their employees.
That's fantastic.
It's fantastic, right? And then they did the reverse. They said, our employees have also filled this questionnaire out. And here's what you can expect from them when they arrive in your home, right? They had their shoe coverings, they had a mask, they were wearing gloves, and they came in, they kept their distance. They were very concerned. And you know what? I was thinking, you know, if they're concerned about their employees, they're also going to be concerned about me. And there was a very clear expectation about that. And they disinfected everything on the way out. So yeah, it's a different reality, but
Yes.
you know, the companies who know how to serve their clients and have that top of mind will pivot quickly and know how to do that.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And after all the live sessions that we had this month, that was one of the main themes, right? We had Natasha in from Home Reorganizing, and we had Michael in from Centennial.
That's right.
That kept coming up that they said, you know, we had to pivot quickly, but we wanted to protect not only the client, of course, but their employees as well, right? And
Exactly.
that's great because it goes both ways. So
Absolutely.
fantastic. All right, so first question here for you. What programs are out there to help me finance my project?
That's a good question. So, you know, it all depends on different government programs. So there's the typical bank. You can go back to your bank depending on the size of your project. You may want to, you know, add to your mortgage and do that. You may want to have a loan. You may have saved money already to do that. But once in a while, there are also very neat government programs out there. There are some in Saskatchewan right now. So there's the PST rebate on new homes, that's new homes. There's a rebate for renovation. It's a renovation tax credit, essentially. And it's in place for a little over than a year right now. And so all of the tax that you are paying on a service, you can utilize that when you do your tax at the end of the year and get that back to a certain maximum.
That's perfect.
So that's perfect.
Yeah.
So you're not seeing that cash right away, but it will help you at the end of the year. And again, you need to prove that you've paid for that tax. So essentially you would have had it in writing. So that's a great incentive. But we also have the city of Saskatoon, and it's the first one in the province doing this, will allow you to put a loan on your property tax if you're looking to increase the efficiency, the energy efficiency of your home. It's called HELP. It's not in place yet, but they, if everything goes well, they do want to have it in place by, you know, the summer, fall, and that would be an option as well. But again, that one's tied to energy efficiency to enhance the efficiency of your home. Again, some very cool options there. If you're thinking about additional, maybe new windows that are more energy efficient, insulation in your attic, or even solar panels, those are the type of things that would be considered for that program.
Okay, yeah. So renovations are not cheap sometimes, especially if you're, you know, if you're doing it right and you're crossing all your T's and dotting all your I's.
Exactly.
And but it's totally worth it. I mean, especially in this landscape now when we're all working from home and spending more time than ever in our homes. I know everyone has that eye where they're wanting to spruce up their spaces, and so
I know,
it's
I
nice
did
to have
it
a little
too.
help. Yeah, you did. Yeah. So you obviously you mentioned that you hired some professionals. Have you ever done any DIYs of yourself that you've regretted?
That I've regretted? I have done DIYs that I've regretted because it was too much work and I didn't have the time.
Yes.
So I'm always, I'm okay painting, right? That's my limit. And I can say, yep, I can paint. But sometimes I just don't have the time, and then I'm up very late at night to finish projects, and you know, and then I'm cranky the next day, right?
And so your tips come from personal experience, is what you're saying.
But you know, I've also hired painters and I've painted myself. So it all, for me, and it's always a very personal choice, but for me, it always comes down to a matter of time.
Of course.
Yep.
All right. This is a really good one. Sometimes I feel like I'm asking too many questions. What can I really ask from a contractor?
Yeah, I know. And as I said in the presentation, I mean, you know, putting in a quote and having a contractor come to your home to deliver that business owner, that professional is not getting paid for that time. So you want to be very efficient. You want to be respectful of their time. So it is a fine balance. So, you know, kudos to that person asking that question, because if you're feeling it, you're probably knowing, that you want to be respectful. completely understand. So maybe it's a matter of, prioritizing your questions. What's really important to you? I do the same thing. I say I nerd out on things and then I start bombarding questions because I want to know more. I get excited. But if you want to be respectful of somebody's time as well, then you probably want to make sure you're boxing those in. So I would I would prioritize my questions, what you really want to know. And if you really get excited about, you want to have more conversations, that's probably also an indication that you are clicking with that professional, right? But it could also be the reverse. If you're not getting the information you need and you have to ask a lot of questions, it could be an indication that it's not a fit as well.
It's like pulling teeth and you're trying to get that information, not quite.
That's right.
Yeah.
So think about if something goes wrong and you're not getting the information you need,
Yeah.
So I would say it's more of an indication of if it's somebody you would want to hire, maybe it's a red flag.
Yeah. Yeah, and like you said, maybe prioritizing, doing it in stages, because of course, right when you're hiring somebody, there's going to be a set of questions you want to ask, and then maybe further down the line, and so, fantastic. All right, who pulls a construction permit with the city, and do I need a permit?
Yeah. So let's start with if you need one. So it all depends on the work that you're doing. Usually, if it's structural, you need a permit. But you know what? The majority of municipalities have a website and have a contact person that you can call if you're not sure. Because there's always those projects where you're just not quite sure. Obviously, if you're painting or you're doing new flooring, you're not going to need that.
Right.
If you're moving a wall, if you're doing plumbing, you may need it. So go to their websites. It's an easy way to just Google it. You can find it. If you can't find what you need on the website, call them. I've done it as well. It's very easy. They're used to dealing with homeowners who just don't know, right? Yeah. Homeowners are not an expert on this, but they are. So they'll answer your questions. Who should be pulling the permit? This will change contractor to contractor. At the end of the day, the onus is on the homeowner to have that done.
Okay.
But the homeowner shouldn't be the one going to City Hall and applying for it. The homeowner should know that the permit is being pulled and then it happened, and it will be closed properly as well. You also have to close that permit. So they should just make sure that it's in the contract, that the contractor or the professional will take care of pulling that permit, and you can ask for it as well. But because it's the home address is on that permit, right? So you want to make sure that it's done and that it's closed properly, but the professional will take care of that.
It's great that you mentioned permits, because I think we all get excited about the visual aspect of a renovation. What's going to be the end product, and you forget there's all these logistics and there's all these, again, T's to cross and I's to dot that you don't even think of, right? The paperwork that has to go into it. So definitely great advice. All right, let's get to a longer question here. We bought a new home 10 years ago with all matching floor. The principal bath on the second floor had a minor leak, and now I want to fix and upgrade it. How do I do this to match the floor and not the whole house? And just as a side note, this is not our forever home or retirement home, so we are concerned about getting return on investment that they put into the home.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually get that question a lot, right? It's really nice when you buy a new home and everything is fresh and everything is coordinating and matching. But you know what? At the end of the day, a house will age, and you will live into it, and things will change. And I think that's also the beauty of renovation work. You get to be creative, and while it may not match what you wanted to originally, you may end up with a project that's actually more exciting than what you thought. But you need to allow yourself to be a bit creative.
Right.
If you don't know how to do that, you may find a renovator that can do that, right? There are actually, we had a renovator just last week who, that's what they do. They are very creative with bathroom solutions. So find a contractor that can actually meet those needs that you're looking for without embarking on, redoing flooring for the entire house. But, you have to be creative at the end of the day. But that can also be exciting if you're willing to go there.
Yeah, instead of matching too, think of it maybe more as coordinating.
Yes.
Right? You don't need to match your flooring, but it has to coordinate from space to space, right? So.
And I think it's also remembering that you may notice that, but the potential buyer walking into your home is not going to know that maybe that floor was different before.
Right. You have to rip some part out.
Yeah. So it's part of the renovation adventure as well.
Yeah, getting a little creative with it. Okay. Do you recommend getting multiple quotes for a project, and how many do you suggest?
Oh, I don't think there's a magic number. It depends on a number of factors. It depends if you have time to go get, more. It depends on the landscape right now, the market. Let's take a look at today's market. professional renovators are very busy right now because of, you know, that tax credit for renovation work. They're very, very busy. So you may want 5, but you may only get 3. And how much, if they will respond to your quotes as well, right? If they're really busy. So it depends on a number of things, but I think you just have to embark on that journey and try a couple. If it doesn't resonate, step back, ask yourself why it doesn't resonate before you go find 2 other companies that you maybe want to ask again, and do it that way.
Fantastic. All right. There's kind of a question here that sort of is coordinated with that, so I'm just looking through here. Okay, this flows directly into it. The market is really hot right now and builders seem really busy. How do you find a renovator when they're all booked up? So it flows
exactly
right into it, yeah.
It flows right into it, right? And it's not just the renovators, but it's also the supplies. I mean, I think we read it in the media all the time recently, is the price of lumber right now is, you know, up to 8 times as high as it was last year. And nobody would have predicted that right now. So if you were thinking of doing a fence, a deck, and you had budgeted for that 2 years ago, the price is going to be significantly different this time around. So it's not only the labor, it's also, you know, the material. So I think those are things that you can't control. You just kind of have to work around as best possible. And the reality is you may have a harder time finding a company to respond to a quote. So if you are and you have to make a decision quickly, that's when a referral service is very, very helpful. So there may be somebody out there in your network that has had a fence or a deck done recently that they were very happy. Have a conversation with them. Why were you happy? How quickly did they do it? What was roughly the price point? And then you can get a better idea without having, if you can't get quotes. So yeah, but at the end of the day, it could be challenging. You know, a good contractor will have a website with information and images, and you can get a sense of who they are as a business. If they don't have a website or a presence online in some way, shape, or form, that's a bit of a red flag for me as well.
Yeah, that's a great way to say it. Also, too, I think that maybe adjusting expectations on timeline. We all want something right away. You know, oh, this room is ugly. I want to revamp it, and so maybe it won't happen this month. But maybe if if you set your expectations with the renovator too, to say, you know,
that's completely
willing to
true.
Stretch the timeline.
Yeah, I mean, we're in a culture of I want this now. This is beautiful.
Instant gratification.
Instant. And so you're just, in the reality of the landscape as we have in this construction season, you know, we may require a bit more patience around that. It'll happen.
And that's the thing. We were talking last week with Michael, and I said, it's so great to know that it does go 2 ways, that people are adjusting their expectations. You know, there's a lot of kindness out there and understanding that it's like, hey, maybe this is not going to flow the same way it used to. There's new things, new rules we have to follow, you know, shortages that renovators have to deal with. And so it's just maybe adjusting it a little bit and knowing it might not happen next month, but maybe in 2 or 3 months I might have, you know, the bathroom of my dreams or whatever it is.
That's right.
So,
you know, sometimes I deal with certain renovators that I trust, and I always go back to them, and that they're really busy, and it's not a bad idea to ask them, well, who would you recommend that matches your standards? And often they know somebody, right, that they would trust, and they would say, yep, I would recommend, you know, here's 2 companies.
Yeah, that's a great advice.
That's a great way to do it.
Perfect. Okay. Is an invoice sufficient paper if I want to get it in writing?
Yes, depending on the size of the project, right? So remember when we said depending on the size of the project, you may have a contract that's 1 page and you may have a contract that's 15 pages, right? It depends on the size. Just make sure that your invoice has, I think if you remember on the sheet, there's 7 different points that you should have, right? So who's the company? Who's it going to? What is the amount? What's the tax being paid? When is the invoice supposed to be paid? When does the inspection happen? So obviously if you're, you know, fixing your toilet in your home, you're going to get that invoice. You're not going to have 15 pages, right? But it's going to be very clear. I expect my toilet to be working. It's going to happen tomorrow. And this is the amount, and it'll be due after, you know, the work is finished, and it should take 2 hours, right? So that's the type of thing. So you just need to be able to answer those questions. Yeah, it really depends on the size of the project. But again, there's a lot of tools and reminders on that website, getitinwriting.ca, and it's just a good way to make sure that you can check off.
It seems very comprehensive. So flowing into that then, I know obviously, things change sometimes along a renovation, right?
Yes.
Oh, I thought I wanted that, and now that I'm seeing that, we're going to shift. So change orders and things like that too. That's probably pretty important to that, especially too for even just the renovator, like to cover themselves and make sure that they're understanding the changes or the additions or upgrades and things like that. So, just because you got it in writing at the start doesn't mean that it shouldn't kind of morph along the way.
That's a good point. If you're doing a larger renovation, a contract should actually detail what happens when you want to change over and what is expected from both parties.
Right.
When we expect, if you want to spend $5,000 more in this particular area and it wasn't covered in the contract, how do we do that? We can't just say yes and embark in it. There's got to be a paper trail for that as well, and an approval process, right? And a good contract will detail that process in case it does happen.
Right.
So that's a good reminder.
Yeah, perfect. So what do we do if a project is not going well and you're unsatisfied with the process or the results? Is there help?
Yeah, well, you have to qualify what doesn't go well mean, right? So is it the work not being completed? Is the quality of work not there? Or it's not going fast enough? So there's different aspects there. And that's why I always say what's the warranty, right? And it also depends on the size of the project and the investment you want to do. So if a plumber came in and did the work and it cost you, I don't know, $200 and you're not happy with it, is it worth fighting with that company that you're not meshing with, or do you just want to start fresh with another company?
Cut your losses and
go. So, and that's unfortunate, right? But that's not just with the renovation world. That could happen everywhere. So, so that's the type of analysis that you need to make on: is it worth the stress? Is it worth the time? What's the size of the project? Do I have another expert that I can lean on? If the project is large enough that you have third-party warranty, then you want to lean on that third-party warranty completely. And there's mechanisms in there that you can
That's why they're
utilize.
there.
That's why they're there. And you know what? Disagreements will happen. They will happen. It's how do you manage through them? And is that at a point where it's not fixable anymore and you need to sort of break up, or how do you do that? So those are all points that you need to consider before taking action.
Yeah, I think you mentioned in your presentation, you said, things will go wrong along the process, right? Even especially if you're renovating older homes, there's so many things that renovators come across, and it's not necessarily if things will go wrong, it's when they will and how they're dealt with, right? And a professional will know how to deal with these things and, pivot and turn and communicate the issues that are happening
A good professional will be able to identify what the surprise is and what the different options that would be in front of the homeowner that they can provide, right? It's, so here are 3 options. Here's how we could proceed. What do you think we should do? So then at least you have options. And nobody's happy with a surprise and the additional costs.
Yeah.
But at least you have options.
It happens, and it's how it's dealt with. So. All right, a couple more here before we wrap up. This is a good one. I don't know the answer to this one, so I'm looking forward to your answer. What is the difference between a contractor and a subcontractor? Should I know the subcontractors as well?
That's a good question. So you have a relationship with the person you're hiring, right? So you are hiring your contractor to do their work, and they would be hiring others to do that. So you're paying one person. You're not paying the subcontractor. You're paying your renovator. So that's the difference. It's who pays who, right? And at the end of the day, I mean, I think it's good to know people and know who's coming through your home, right? But you're also not going to be managing that project, and you need to let your contractor manage that project. If you're seeing something you're not comfortable with, I wouldn't approach the subcontractor. I would go directly to the contractor, right?
That's who you hired.
Yeah, that's who you hired. That's where that relationship is expected to lie. And if you see something you're not comfortable with, then they're going to deal with it, right? You should not have to deal with more stress. The relationship is with the person that you are paying, and that's why you're paying them, right? Is to manage all those small details. And that's what I would do.
Awesome. Okay, 2 more quick ones here. Can you find out if a contractor has been involved with any legal disputes following a previous job?
Yeah, that's a good question. At the end of the day, that would be a good question for a lawyer. In terms of, and I'm assuming that question would come if you're for a larger project. So I don't know, let's just say a home addition or something quite significant. You want to make sure that there maybe hasn't been other liens on other properties. And that's something that your lawyer can help you with. For us, when we are bringing on renovators and builders, we have a certain process to make sure that they have historically in the past followed a certain code of ethics, and we have certain checkpoints that we can verify, but obviously you can't verify everything, right? So definitely if they have been certified, there's a certain standard there. So look for those logos, right? The certified professional renovator, certified professional home builder. There's definitely certain standards there. But if you're embarking on something larger and you really just want to make sure, I would just ask those questions to your lawyer.
Yeah, it always helps to get that kind of second opinion. And all right, last one here. What is a realistic communication schedule? How often should I be checking in and getting updates about the progress?
That's a good question.
Yeah, I know, right? We want to know. We want, again, instant gratification. What's happening? I want to see
what's happening. But you know what? I think that's a really good question at the start. Before you're going to hire somebody, you should ask them that. How often do you communicate? If I want more, does that work for you, right? How are we going to work together? So that's just going to depend on the project.
Yeah.
I mean, it also depends on the length of the project. If they're going to be working on your deck for 2 days,
Yes.
how often do you want communication, right? So it's also going to depend on the amount. So have that conversation before you embark. What are the expectations around this? So am I being too difficult if I'm asking something every day? Or, and they'll answer. Maybe there's not enough development in a day. I don't know. But setting those expectations from the very beginning will help maintain that relationship and those communications up until the end.
And I think the forms of communications too, right? And who are you dealing with? Are you dealing with the project manager? Are you dealing with the the worker themselves? Or are you getting emails or texts and
that's a good point. Yep. And everybody has a different comfort level, right? So I just always say it's better to have those conversations up front. Yeah,
set the expectation. And well, unfortunately, that is all the time we have for today. Chris, those are fantastic tips and tricks. And again, you can find a lot of that information on getitinwriting.ca. Perfect. And you can also go to our website as well, saskatoonhomebuilders.com, and you can find those professionals listed on our website as well. So that's fantastic. We do have to thank our sponsors for today. So the Star Phoenix has sponsored our virtual main stage all month long. So thank you so much to the Star Phoenix for hosting this space for us. As well as we have this nice little set here sponsored by North Prairie Development. So thank you so much to North Prairie for making us look good on this set. And a big thank you too to all of our experts we've had in throughout the month. We had Edwin from Effective Installation Solutions. We had Natasha from Home Free Organizing, Michael from Centennial. It's just been an awesome month. To you too, of course. So you can actually find all of our presentations. This one will be available immediately on our website. So if you go to homestylesonline.com and you go to the main stage, you can click on the different presentations and it'll lead you right to our YouTube page where you can find all these presentations as well. Now, this fun is not over for our show. Obviously, we've been running the Homestyle Show all month long, and you can still check out all of the fun on homestylesonline.com until March 31st. So all the exhibitors will have their booths up. We are running contests. You can still get stamps on your Homestyles passport. And make sure, too, that you're following us over on Instagram and Facebook because we have 3 more exhibitor takeovers coming up until the 31st, and lots more fun to come. So it's been amazing this month. I know that obviously an in-person show is so fun, and we're looking forward to hopefully returning to that next year. But this virtual version has been amazing, and thank you so much to all of you for interacting with us. And we'll see you online and hopefully in person next year for the Homestyle Show. Have a great day.